I'm really excited to talk about these habits with you because I've had over 500 people sitting in that chair. And after the first 200 or 300, I started asking myself, what makes this person get in this chair as opposed to the person I just walked by on the sidewalk or the person that drove my bus or the person that served me coffee? And I'm always like, what makes them different? And I came to this conclusion that there are no high performance people, just high performance habits. But when I tell people that, and when I tell my students in our academy that, a lot of times it just goes over their head. And they're like, oh yeah, sure. But I think somehow, deep down inside, we always equate it with like a talent. That person's a billionaire, well, they were always gonna be that way. That person's a great actor, a great athlete. But from what I've seen, it usually comes down to great habits. And if you really dissect their behavior, it turns out that they're doing some really pretty granular things that they're doing. I haven't met too many people that wake up at 5 a.m. that actually do great things. A lot of times those people are actually doing things. I don't know many people that wake up at 5 a.m. and then watch Netflix. I mean, there's usually, I know Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, and he's getting up at 4 a.m. and posting pictures of his watch. But a lot of times those people are being effective. And so I really do think habits are important. So I hope everybody listening really plugs into what we're gonna say, because it's not just about being high performance or getting what you want. I think it's about having a great life. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so I think there actually are. I agree with that point, but it's I think even deeper than that. So it's not that luck and randomness and uncertainty don't play a role in life. They do. Luck is a part of all of our lives to a certain degree, both good fortune and bad. But by definition, you don't have control over luck. And your habits also matter. And I think that the reason they're so worthwhile to focus on and understand is that they are the portion of your life that you can influence that also determines your outcomes. It's not just luck, it's not just habits, but one of those you have control over. And so it makes sense. The only reasonable strategy is to focus on what you can control. If you spend all of your time focusing on things you can't control, then you're just going to end up frustrated. And so I think habits are maybe the best lever for that. Now, something that I say deeper in the book that I also think is true is that talent and genes, they play a role. I have a chapter, I think it's chapter 18 or 19, it's the role of genes and habits and how they interplay. And it's important, people have natural predispositions to things that make them better. But what you find is that nearly always when someone is a great performer in a particular domain, they are both well suited, so naturally talented or have some kind of predisposition to that area, and well trained. And so even if you are talented, you can't succeed without having great habits to execute and to fully realize the potential that you have. Right. And so no matter where we're talking, I think habits play a crucial role.
Yeah, we've all heard the story of the coach that just is shaking his head because that one kid had so much talent, but he never showed up to practice.
I think sometimes, I played baseball all the way through college, and I think sometimes I would rather be an athlete that's at the 90th percentile of physical talent, but the 95th of execution and habits than the other way around. Because if you don't have the habits and the practice routines and rituals to actually realize your potential, a lot of the time it's just not enough. It's enough at lower levels, but once you get to the top of any field, everybody's talented. And so the thing that separates you is often not the physical gifts, but your ability to practice, get out of your own way, your mental approach, all that type of stuff. Anyway, so those are some more nuanced points, but I think the central thing that you were getting at is true. Your outcomes in life are often a lagging measure of your habits. A lot of the time people talk about, I want to have more money, or I want to lose weight, or I want some kind of result. But the truth is, your bank account is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning and reading habits. And so it's actually, we think the thing that needs to change is the bank account or the test score or the number on the scale, but actually the thing that needs to change are the habits that precede those outcomes.
Right. And even more so, your identity and sense of self, a lot of times, is all rolled up into your habits, which is even a crazier kind of a messing with your brain. In that these little things you do that you might ignore all the time could change who you actually are.
So I had this question while I was researching the book. I think identity plays a crucial role, but my question was well, how do we come to believe things about ourselves? Because when you come into the world as a baby, you don't have any preset beliefs or notions. That's not to say that, again, your genes don't matter. They certainly matter in some sense, your height might be more or less baked into your DNA. But we all realize that if you grew up in a different culture or a different religion or a different community or household, you could adopt completely different beliefs if that was what you were raised in. And so I was like, well, how does that happen, right? How does this internal story that we tell ourselves, our identity, become shaped and formed? And I realized that it's mostly through the repetition of that story. And so what you come to realize is that your habits reinforce a particular identity. And sometimes this can be positive and sometimes it can be negative. The story could be things like, I'm bad at math, or I'm terrible at remembering people's names, or I'm not good at remembering directions places.
Yeah.
And all of those that's just an internal story that you tell yourself. But each time you have an experience that reinforces that, the story gets solidified. And so I think the method, the takeaway here is that every action you take is kind of like a vote for the type of person you want to become. And if you can master the right actions, if you can master the right habits, then you can start to cast votes for this new identity, this desired person that you want to be. And I think that's one of the reasons why small habits matter so much. They don't necessarily transform your life overnight, right away. Like doing one push-up does not transform your body, but it does cast a vote for being the type of person who doesn't miss workouts. Or meditating for 1 minute might not give you an immediate sense of calm in your life, but it does cast a vote for being a meditator. And this is why one of the things I say in the book, like the real goal is not to run a marathon, the goal is to become a runner. The goal is not to write a book, the goal is to become a writer. Because once you've adopted that identity, you're really not even pursuing behavior change anymore. You're just kind of acting in alignment with the type of person you already see yourself to be. It's kind of like true behavior change is really identity change. Because once you've changed that internal story, it's way easier to show up each day. You're not even really motivating yourself that much to do it. You're just like, this is who I am now.